All right, Michelle, I started recording. You're good to go.
Great. Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everybody that is joining us online and anyone there in the room. My name is Michele Thornton. I am an associate professor in management and marketing in the School of Business, and I am part of our work group on accessibility practices and a former accessibility fellow here at Oswego. Casey Raymond is in the room there, and he is part of our team as well and is kind of running point if we've got folks in the room there that have questions, things like that. But I will be the main presenter for today. I am a middle-aged woman with chin-length dark brown hair, and I'm wearing an olive green sweater today. And we're going to be talking about a project that we have been working on for about a year. It is called Access, a Quest Towards Inclusion. So I have a whole variety of slides to share. I'm also going to be giving you a sneak peek at a video and our course site. So there will be some toggling back and forth between some different screens. But I do want to put into the chat box the main slide deck that we'll be using, as well as along the way, I will be adding some additional resources and tools to follow up on. But at least you'll have access to the slides. That way, if you want to follow along or refer to them later, you'll have them available to you. Please feel free to stop and ask questions at any point along the way. I'll be monitoring the chat for here online. And Casey, you can jump in and stop me should anybody join in there in the room and have questions as well.
Will do. And I have chat open as well.
Perfect. Thanks. So with that, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So I'm hopeful if I can get a thumbs up from the folks in the Zoom that you guys can see my slides. What you are going to be learning about today is our project, which is called Access, a Quest Towards Inclusion. This is also our first debut of our new branding and icon, our logo that you see in the top left corner of this screen. This was created by Oswego graduate student Heidi Yauker. I don't know if she's here with us today, but with input from Rebecca Mushtare, as well as our entire project team. I want to describe it for you a little bit because, of course, while it has the course name, the icon is intentional as well. So you see three individuals close together, wrapped up in an arrow, which is meant to signify both inclusivity and some forward progress. The colors are, of course, based on Oswego color schemes of green and gold. I describe it for you, not just to kind of give you some insight into that, but this is an example of the ways that we model sort of accessible practices in our project that we are going to be discussing today. And that is to make sure that if you present anything that is a visual icon, that you include a description of it verbally. So in case someone is participating that does not have the same visual abilities as others, would get to experience what we're talking about as well. So with that, we will move us forward. Our game plan today is to give you an introduction to this project, but then also talk a little bit about how we funded it and what kind of everything is that went into the behind the scenes of creating this. I will share a little bit about the timeline and our process, and then, as I mentioned, give you a sneak peek at the course itself. And then we'll wrap up by talking about how folks can get involved should you be interested in learning more moving forward. So, it is not a sort of surprise. I think that probably most of you who have been around for a little while know that we have been working for many, many years to develop a culture around accessibility at Oswego. This project focuses primarily on digital accessibility, but a lot of the principles that we focus on are really consistent across campus in a lot of different spaces and very applicable. We believe strongly that access is foundational to the public mission of SUNY and all of the efforts that we are working towards around diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. In this case, working to remove digital access barriers helps campus members with disabilities, non-native English speakers, and anybody who might be experiencing some kind of temporary or situational disability. So it's just another space that we can think about trying to be more intentional around creating inclusive spaces. Our goal at the outset here was to create a kind of fun, easy, and long term sustainable way for members of our campus and beyond, really, to increase their familiarity, learn some new skills, and join the bigger community that is working to kind of create that inclusivity that we value. But the background here is that if we were to kind of rewind back a few years and think about the fall of 2020, which was when we all went remote due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there were several kind of accessibility barriers that were quickly highlighted, and many folks on campus were really struggling with understanding the right approaches to address these barriers. Our work group on accessibility practices at that time um, chose to create and deploy an 10-day accessibility challenge in January of 2021 during winter breakouts. And that was really our first attempt at kind of trying to demystify digital accessibility in a way that was really, really kind of fun, engaging. We were trying to help folks see that there were easy to implement practices that could make small changes but have big impacts. And we were doing it in a way that really tried to encourage kind of a gamification of the process as opposed to be kind of another required training that folks had to take or some sort of compliance-based issue. The results of that first challenge were overwhelmingly positive. We had broad participation from across campus, both faculty, staff, students, and administrators. They reported through a variety of different ways that we were measuring it, increased familiarity with the skills and concepts, an increase in their confidence around using them, and high satisfaction, not just with the challenge itself, but also at the community building aspect and around really kind of being a part of this, working to create a culture of accessibility at Oswego. While we were working to kind of synthesize and make sense of what happened during that challenge and thinking about how we move forward, we kind of gave ourselves a lot of different outlets to talk about it, to share, and to really analyze this. So we presented at conferences. We did have a publication recently put out on this through the Journal of Post-Secondary Education and Disability. And most recently, we were featured on the Tea for Teaching podcast episode. So there's all kinds of ways to learn more about that original challenge. But the point for today is to just understand that it was that success that we were trying to build on. One thing that we learned when we were deploying that first challenge was that it was pretty resource intensive. It was a lot of work. We had to put in a lot of extra manpower to do it. Kate DeForest is here, who is constantly kind of monitoring, engaging folks over email. It was a lot to do in a very short, rapid period of time. And we knew that while this was really beneficial and impactful for our community, that to do it long term, we needed to rethink kind of our approach. And if we were going to do that, it was really important that we could create it in a way that was high quality and kind of had some principles that would really carry us forward into the future in a way that wasn't going to be constantly kind of putting in that same level of manpower. Additionally, the more we were out there talking about it, the more we were getting requests for access to our materials, the ability to replicate and deploy this. We had schools across the SUNY system ask us if we could come help them do a challenge similarly. And it was clear that what we were doing was somewhat novel and that other people needed help with this as well. So we kind of came together as a work group and had the goal of designing the necessary infrastructure, both so that as we could continue offering something like this, but also potentially that other SUNY campuses could access it as well. By all of us kind of migrating to the same learning management system during the same time period, it created a real opportunity to potentially design something here that we could own, be known for, but that could really be a large benefit across the SUNY system. So to do that, as you might imagine, we knew that this was going to take some additional funding and some additional resources. And what you'll come to learn throughout today's presentation is that there was a true kind of all hands on deck mentality in creating this project. Our funding source primarily came from SUNY through the Innovative Instruction Technology Grant. This is an annual grant program And we were given just about $25,000 from them. Obviously, notably, once it became a possibility for something within SUNY as a whole, I think there was a lot of interest generated around this idea. But also, it should not go without talking about that SUNY Oswego supported this directly as well with significant staff allocation and resources as well, primarily coming out of extended learning with our instructional designers and our amazing videographer, Jay Hi, who is here today too, but also from CTS and the library, where we did a lot of our work and kind of had access to their resources from librarians and things like that. I do want to, I'm going to add one more thing into the chat, and that is a link to the SUNY IITG grant, because I believe that their due date is coming up. And so if that is a program you're interested in or want to know more about, I really encourage folks to consider them because they are very generous and really, I think that this is an exciting tool for us to have access to. I was going to share this earlier, but I'm also going to pop into the chat links to our archives of our 10-day challenge, the article, the journal article, and the Tea for Teaching podcast. So you've got everything you need. Okay. So our grant team, and you got to bear with me because since we've got these up on the screen, I'm going to read off the names, but what I want you to be taking away as I'm sharing it is thinking about the broad variety of expertise, backgrounds, knowledge, roles on campus, because really this group was very diverse, and that becomes really important as we're going to be understanding some key takeaways here. So as far as the content creators that were part of the core grant team, we have Emily Bovier, Anna Croyle, Kate DeForest, Laura Harris, Jay Hi, Carrie Mocyk, Sean Moriarty, Rebecca Mushtare, Casey Raymond, myself, Michele Thornton, and Heidi Yauker. We also were able to support undergraduate student TAs, and we had 3 of them. They're still working with us: Lizzie Burke, Sean Lynn, Fran Spica, and then all kinds of additional support coming from our accessibility fellows, CTS, Division of Extended Learning, the Office of Accessibility Resources, the CDIO, and the Triandaflu Institute, and then ongoing sort of this lives within the work group on accessibility practices. That's not even the full list. There are other students that participated, other faculty members. There's just a whole big group of folks that was involved in this process. What we use the money for, and I think it's important to just kind of be really transparent about this, but also just as if folks are thinking about other projects on their of their own kind of interests. First, the bulk of the money went towards the content creation, and this was to pay for both faculty extra service time and then the allotment of staff time. Also to support our students, our graduate and our undergraduate teaching assistants. And then coming up, we've got some additional kind of added expenses around promotional materials, software, and some content testing. So as I mentioned, we started kind of the planning process in fall of 22, and this was, again, about a year and a half after the original accessibility challenge was deployed. And that, I think is notable because in the meantime, we had kind of tried some other different versions. We had tried a shorter version of it. We had kind of done some different things with other breakout sessions. But it became really clear that to continue this on, we needed to kind of create this more sustainable tool. Submitted our grant in February of last year, were notified in May, and then got to work last summer in what we're calling our content camps, which I'll tell you more about just momentarily. We continued kind of our ongoing development this past fall, and then we're piloting the spring. So in total, it's about a year-long process with some additional planning time on the front end. Some of the key sort of principles that we kind of took to heart as we were designing this course. Obviously, as I've mentioned, we wanted it to be online, asynchronous, and utilize the tools in Brightspace. We wanted to try and minimize any kind of ongoing manpower. So we were focusing on things like self-enrollment, but also encouraging our content creators to link out to other Oswego resources or best practice kind of sites, things like DQ University. These are places where content is being continuously updated based on changing laws and requirements and updated sort of tools that become available. This is important because then that helps us to be able to stay evergreen in a way, as opposed to replicating that content in multiple places and then constantly having to update it. We also wanted to ensure that we had high quality, engaging videos that really were kind of our hooks to encourage folks to stay interested in the content and to make it personal and relatable. We wanted to continue using principles related to gamification so that people had kind of this ability to um, earn points, potentially compete against one another if there was perhaps a group that wanted to come together and use the challenge as a kind of a fun professional development activity. We wanted to make sure that we were weaving throughout the course ways and calls for people to adopt the new things that they were learning and really integrate it into their personal or professional lives right away. And finally, we wanted to ensure that along the way, we were really modeling accessibility best practices and features within Brightspace. And so the things that we did that were really intentional around that was using a consistent template across the course. So even though we've got all kinds of hands on deck developing content, we wanted that to be really consistent, that utilize structured content, easy to read fonts, and specific icons that would signal when a different type of content was coming up. All of those were a way to try and minimize the cognitive load of the material. All of our embedded course videos are captioned and practice the use of things like physical descriptions of our narrators, which you saw me do at the beginning of today's session as well. Any images that we have include alternative text to describe them to make sure that people across the spectrum know what they're being used for and what the meaning that they're trying to convey. And then our choice of colors for font, logos, and icons was tested for contrast and appropriate color ratios. Finally, along the way, we kind of use this sort of like meta approach where we are noting Brightspace accessibility features that are happening in there. We're not going to go too depth on this today, but I will put a link in the chat again on kind of a resource related to that. And also later in the week, we have a whole session focused on Brightspace accessibility features. So this is a group of 8 members of our team, smiling, happy folks at one of our summer content camps. We all came together for a few days in June and a few days in July last summer. And it's interesting, because as I primarily teach online, and so when I generally think about creating my course materials, it is in my office, which you guys see me in today, yellow walls, big windows, sitting at my desk with my laptop. And it's interesting because we made a very specific choice to come together and to develop our content in person. There's a number of reasons why I think this was a huge component of the ultimate kind of quality of the product that we created. I can't say we know the impact yet because it hasn't been piloted, but I really believe in it. And folks that are in the room that participated in this, you see a lot of similar faces. I know that I walked away feeling like my content was better than it would have been had I been kind of sitting solo in my office. And I'll kind of share a few takeaways about why we think that is. We operated out of the library. We see on the left kind of some support we got from other kind of groups on campus that were providing refreshments for us. But also you'll see we were really actively working together. So while there was social time and there was the ability to kind of connect and just hold space together, we were really actively using that time to create a consistent approach to our content development and to really kind of share feedback and play off one another. I think that the content camp served a few purposes. One, it was dedicated focus time. We were all in the same space. We were all working on the same thing. And it sort of allowed us to really dig in and kind of go deep on the things that we wanted to come across and share in this course. This facilitated synergy and brainstorming. I think there were probably things that ultimately were added in that we might not have included had we all kind of just had our work divvied up and we're working separately on it. But also it really gave us that ability to create some consistency in the development as we were all ensuring that we were kind of creating the same types of content for each different module. The other thing that I really liked, and this is always tricky, right, is that it allowed for really rapid feedback and sharing. So we would each kind of go off and work and then present our work to one another and kind of get ideas if one of us had gotten stuck. And that kind of rapid turnaround on kind of giving us the ability to continuously improve what we were doing quickly, I think was also really helpful. We also use this time to schedule in our video creation that was happening. And so that definitely allowed for a certain amount of efficiency on the front end where we were able to kind of do a lot of recording at one time. We have continued to utilize Jay's efforts in recording our videos since then. But I think getting a big chunk of the work done in those isolated times over the summer when there wasn't as much competition for the recording studios was super helpful as well. It was also just fun, right? So even though maybe this is not how we might officially choose to spend our time in the summer, I think we found ways to kind of enjoy the time together, and it felt really motivating to me. So I have kind of given you a lot of information about kind of how this all came to be, and I do absolutely want to get you some eyes on what was created. So the first thing I want to share with you is what the sort of outline looks like of the course. Of course, there's a basic introduction to digital accessibility. This is the module that you guys are going to get a look at today. But there's a few things that we added in that have not historically been part of our 10-day challenges. And the first module that is new to this content is called Designing for Cognition. This was developed by Emily Bovier, and she is here today. She's also our new accessibility fellows coordinator this spring, and we're really excited about this contribution. I think it diversifies the way that we've been talking about accessibility, and it's a really important one that we include early on because I think it really helps us think a lot about why what we're doing is important, not just for individuals that have physical impairments or disabilities, but also for folks that might have mental or emotional disability and how they're interacting with the content that we're creating. Then we go into modules that may sound quite familiar to any of you who have participated in our previous challenges, things about how we present information, whether that's over email communications or things like creating structured content, alt text, color and contrast, or captioning videos. Our last two kind of components are also a little bit new. And one, we have a module on best practices for adopting and sharing others' materials, right? So not if you are creating materials, but how do we kind of test for and ensure that materials that other folks are using, whether that's from a publisher or on a website that we're linking to, are also accessible. And then finally, we can wrap things up with a module on advocacy and action. And this comes out of, I think, sort of our new mindset around really trying that this is one component of creating this broader culture around access and inclusivity, and really helping folks to see how by just learning this and ways to adopt these things in their own lives can really kind of become part of that critical kind of culture shift that we're looking for. Okay, now I'm going to shift out of my slides here and I'm going to move and into the course itself. So this is one of those times I need everyone to just bear with me for 1 second so that I can stop my share and reshare. Okay, hopefully you'll see the opening homepage of our course. Yes, and thumbs up. I think I can see it there on the screen. Yeah. So the way this is going to work is that for any of you who work in Brightspace, you have access to Brightspace, this will be a course that is available to everybody as part of a no attached term. So we've seen other trainings go into that space as we go. Things, I think there's disaster preparedness training in there, but everyone will have access to it. You can go in then and enroll into that. That's coming soon, not available yet. Like most Brightspace courses, it's going to function with specific modules in the content section. So I am going to share with you a few things to kind of showcase the introduction to digital accessibility module, and that can kind of highlight some of the things that I've shared with you. So every single module has sort of these 4 similar components, and that is an introduction that looks very similar and consistent across each module. Then there is a set of sort of exploration topics, and this could be either additional videos that explain a concept or a skill. This could be links out to other sets of information or just some narrative content. Finally, or not finally, next up, we have some activities, and this is the things that you do to gain points in the module, and then some type of wrap up. And that's where we always kind of come back to not only sharing what we learned about, but also ways to adopt this content right away in your everyday life. So in the introduction, each module begins with a hook video. So we're going to watch that together. I'm hoping that that everything aligns up, and I'll start it and make sure that you can hear the audio on it. But this is an example of Jay's great work and really kind of shows what we're kind of I think, look and feel that we're trying to get at with these, with the type of content that we're including. So.
World have a desire,
Here.
a psychological need to feel included. Each of us has the ability to build, design, or create spaces that support and encourage this type of inclusion, move in the opposite direction to exclude others, either intentionally or inadvertently in the choices that we make. Approaching the spaces that we work, play, and live in with a spirit of inclusivity and broadening access is one way we can be supportive allies in our community. I'm Michele Thornton, an associate professor in the School of Business here at SUNY Oswego. My areas of expertise include health policy, access to care, and inclusive workspaces. I'm a middle-aged woman with chin-length dark hair. When I think about inclusive spaces, it's easy for us to imagine really tangible examples of ways that we make rooms, buildings, or public areas more accessible physically. We can use the example of your average grocery store. Here, we see folks entering and exiting through automatic sliding doors. Originally, this technology was crafted to provide easier access and entry for individuals using a wheelchair or those with another physical limitation that made it difficult to open traditional doors. Although this is the original intent of automatic doors, the benefits extend to all kinds of other scenarios. If we have a mother leaving the store with multiple children and a cart full of groceries, or even just large groups attempting to enter and exit at the same time, the sliding doors make the space more easily accessible for everyone. You can also think about inclusive spaces in the digital or virtual world. Many of us find ourselves spending more and more time online, whether it's taking a course, participating in Zoom meetings, shopping, or streaming the latest TV series. Digital spaces have the same ability to include or exclude certain groups of people, particularly those with certain cognitive and physical disabilities. In this module, you'll begin to better understand what accessibility is and how it differs from accommodation. We'll explore the concept of ableism and how it impacts learning and information processing. We are happy you're here, and we're excited to work with you in this course to work towards a more inclusive community where people with a disability and folks without disabilities can have the same or similar experiences when they're interacting with us in the digital spaces that we connect in.
So thank you all for bearing with me on that. And again, this is our first sort of broad showcasing of these videos. And so there's one like that that's in each module that starts it off. We continue to go on and have a more traditional kind of overview of online content where we talk about kind of what we said in the video, what folks can expect in this module, big questions that they want to be considering, and then of course the learning objectives. So that format is really consistent throughout each module that you would encounter. The next thing that you'll see here is in our Explore module, we have examples of things that this is where we, instead of replicating content, we link out to other resources. So understanding why accessibility is important, this links out to our campus accessibility website page. Accessibility fundamentals is offered through DQ. And then if there's a really kind of core concept that we want folks to understand and focus on, we'll call that out separately as well. A few things I want to point out. I mentioned that there were kind of little icons that are consistent throughout the course. This is our resource icon. Also things like our kind of pause and reflect icon here at the bottom, which this is not sort of an activity or assignment. It's just something to kind of continue to think about and give folks the opportunity to engage with material differently. I think that's all I'll mention on this page. So In our activity section, you'll see there's 2 for this particular module. One is a self kind of assessment piece of it using the Harvard implicit bias tool. And then the next one is where you gain 10 points for doing something, and there's typing in a reflection. This is useful for a variety of reasons. One, again, to kind of create that gamification principle. Also, it gives us the opportunity to kind of draw some data from what's happening here. What are folks experiencing? How are they engaging with the content? So moving forward, should we want to continue to kind of test and examine the impact of this, we'll be able to collect that along the way as well. And then finally, we have our wrap-up module. And here is, again, just basic kind of overview summary of what was discussed in this module, this opportunity to adopt something that kind of like a key takeaway, and then last thoughts where we tee up the next module. So that is a general understanding of kind of what this is going to look like and what you would encounter should you choose to participate in the course. Let me toggle back to my slides now, and we will continue on. Oh, shoot. Hang on, I have to do it differently. Give me one more second. Okay, great. So our whole intention around the development of this and all the work that's gone into it is to kind of broaden the availability of accessibility, knowledge, resources, familiarity, and commitment and passion to as many people as possible. And so it is our hope that many of you here today and across Oswego's community will get involved with what we're doing here. So first thing that we would ask is to participate in our pilot. So this is coming soon. You will be seeing information about this, and it will kind of become available on your Brightspace. And we encourage you not only to do this on your own, but to think about opportunities and spaces that you participate in. Maybe it is a committee that you're on. Maybe it's your department or the team that you work within to participate as a group and conduct a challenge around this. In that pilot, we really are going to be looking for a lot of feedback on kind of how it went, what you liked, what you didn't like, because our intention is to deploy this more widespread across SUNY. And we are hoping to kind of launch that at CIT in May. So between now and May, we need engagement from our own campus community to help us understand what's working and what's not. The last thing I'll say is I've kind of highlighted a lot of different things that we talk about in this course. And these principles and concepts and tools are being discussed across the winter breakouts this year as well. So almost every day of breakouts, we have 2 courses that are, or 2 trainings that are being offered, usually around 10 in the morning. There's one and one at 1 o'clock. The next couple that are coming up are tomorrow at 10 a.m., our accessibility fellows panel, and then our 5 principles of accessibility tomorrow afternoon. On Wednesday, I am presenting the accessibility features of Brightspace that I mentioned earlier, and then we go into a little bit deeper dive on structured content Wednesday afternoon. There's lots more, though, happening after that. Those are just the first few that are coming up if I've piqued your interest on them. So with that, I do want to stop and see if folks have questions about kind of our process, about kind of the IITG grants, or just kind of the course and what we've developed. Or I also am happy to open it up for any of the team that's also here. If you have any comments or things that you want to add about what it was like to participate in this project. Not putting anybody on the spot, but I know I see a couple of you.
Michelle, I'll chime in for just a moment while we wait
Thanks,
to see
Kate.
if anybody else has any questions. This is Kate DeForest. I think that it's been very useful and very helpful to have this type of challenge. As Michelle had mentioned, we've been working at Oswego for a number of years to kind of spread the good word of accessibility, and the pandemic really brought into light a lot of various outlying situations that normally wouldn't be on our radar at all. So rather than trying to be very reactive and sort of help people when it was asked. Of course, we will help people when it's asked, but we were trying to be more proactive and trying to really push out the education part of it, to help people understand what they can do in order to make their materials a little more accessible along the way. And again, as Michele has mentioned, the small pieces of it have been like a really sort of quote big hit. That pun was totally not intended, but anyway, it's very easy to make small modifications to things that you normally wouldn't think of. And those small modifications can have a really big impact. So a lot of times people think, oh, I can't do this accessibility stuff. There's just so much to it and it's so overwhelming. And one of the accessibility sessions that I like to do is really breaking it down and explaining how I call it how to eat the digital accessibility elephant, and really how to attack it one tiny little piece at a time. And when you look at it one little piece at a time, it's a lot easier to digest and sort of understand. So if it's something that feels really like out of your realm of comfortability and really like, oh my gosh, this is so much to do, it's really not. Like there's ways to go about it that are much simpler than you may think. So.
Thanks, Kate. We did have one question in the chat. I just want to say it out loud. When can we register for the course? We expect self-enrollment to be able to begin happening right after the start of the semester.
And Michele, this is Kate. I just want to kind of piggyback on what Kate said, that there's a lot of little things that you can do. And if you build them into your routine, you have a big impact. And all the details about accessibility can be overwhelming. Our goal is to kind of overcome that. And we recognize, and various faculty fellows have encountered, that there are some very specific discipline items that you encounter. And some of the fellows have come up with solutions to those from others. Some are still working on solutions. But those folks, the former fellows, can be a resource for you if you've got something within your discipline that you're not sure how to tackle. They may have some insights on how to do it. Todd Graber out of music, I know, was really kind of looking at how do you read a musical score accessibly, right? So I worked on mathematical equation notation. So there's resources out there. There's people that you can go encounter when you hit that. I have no idea what to do. Just ask.
I also want to call out, I had mentioned the IITG grants. This was used specifically for this project this year. It looks like, according to John Kane, a resident expert on IITG grants, that for 2024, the restriction for those is related to OER and AI related proposals. So those are pretty specific, but I know we've got folks thinking about both those things on our campus too. Any other comments from, oh, Sean, hello, you are on mute, sir.
For me? Oh, hang on.
There you go.
I think we can hear you now.
Because I happen to be in the room with Casey and the others. But I just want to say my experience of working with the team was fantastic in terms of the content camps that you folks did. It's true, like you guys were really focused and got things done, but had a lot of fun too. It looked like it was a great time that you had getting together for the summer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the, you know, the end product when it's ready and when people can start to go and earn their points and learn some more. So great job.
Thanks, Sean. Any other comments or questions from the group? Well, with that, we can wrap up a little bit early then. Thank you all so much for coming. Please, I will put my email address in the chat. If you have any questions or want to learn any more about what we're doing, I would love to hear from you. And we would love to see you at any of our upcoming accessibility presentations during winter breakouts. So hopefully we'll catch up with you another time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Michele.
From this afternoon.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.